Joining me now is Jeff Mushaluk of Fission 3.0. Jeff, tell me, what is your symbol? What exchange are you on?
So our symbol is FUU.V. We trade on the Venture Exchange here in Toronto.
So Fission 3.0, what do you do? I know that you're into uranium, but let's talk about where you're at, what each of those different sites looks like, and what the future for uranium is for Fission 3.0.
Yeah, so it's a good question. We're a mineral exploration stage company. We have a 18 project portfolio. Of that, 16 of them are in the prolific Athabasca Basin in northern Saskatchewan. We have one project in Alberta, and then we have another one in Peru. So in total 18, and we're drilling on one of our most prospective properties as we speak.
Which is where?
So we are currently drilling at Key Lake, at our Karpinka Lake and Hobo Lake projects. The Key Lake area was obviously host to the 200 million pound Key Lake mine that was operated by Cameco in Orano. So it's a prolific area with a lot of history. We have, I want to say, half a dozen to 10 drill holes that we're doing during our winter program right now. We just finished in January drilling at Pattison Lake North, which is near where the PLS discovery was for fission uranium, which is called the emerging frontier in the Athabasca Basin, which is in the west side.
Emerging? How so? Explain what do you mean by emerging frontier?
Yeah. So if you look at the Athabascan Basin, the first mines were in the northern part, Uranium City, Beaver Lodge. Several mines in operation there, of which we do have properties up there as well. Then a discovery was made on the east side of the basin, and then that's where you have the Key Lake mill. A lot of the major discoveries, McArthur River, Cigar Lake, were all developed on the east side of the basin. In 2010-ish, Fission Uranium, which was the parent company, Fission 3 was spun out of Fission Uranium. They discovered the RRR deposit in the PLS area, which is on the west side, so it was unconventional, if you will. As soon as the RRR discovery was made, there was a staking rush to the west, and you've seen, obviously the success of NextGen with their Arrow discovery. So I say emerging in that area is still relatively underexplored, but that is changing now with likely the ascending price in uranium because there's interest back in the sector.
Oh, right. So with your different properties, because you have so many different properties, where are you at? Like, you're an exploration company, but where are you at in the development process? I'm thinking about this purely from an investor's perspective. So, they're going, okay, I'm going to put money into you. Where are you at right now? What are the prospects ahead of me at the moment?
So I think the first thing you look at from an investment standpoint, that's my background, was on the investment side. I think the first thing you got to look at is what kind of shape is this sector in, and the sector for uranium has been extremely challenging.
Yes.
And we've been in a prolonged. We were in a prolonged bear market. Last year, I think we were one of the top performing asset classes in the world for the spot price uranium, that is. The equities, the companies haven't really caught up to that narrative yet. But I think the prospect for uranium looks very favorable, but specific to our company and what separates us is kind of what we've already talked about. We have 18 properties, so we have a diverse portfolio. We're diverse even within the Athabascan Basin, and where our focus is where there's been obviously trends and where there's been previous major discoveries. So as the adage goes, the best way to find a new mine is to find one that was already operating. So and that's where I think that's the strategy that Fission 3 employs. So like I said, we have basically three areas that we're focused on. The new part, which is in the west, which we just discussed. The east side, the Key Lake area, which is host to all the major discoveries, and then the historic northern part near Uranium City and Beaver Lodge. So that's where our focus is during our winter and summer drill programs, because they're our most prospective properties.
So let's talk about what the markets are for uranium at the moment. We know that Japan is in a holding pattern, and maybe that's being polite. Maybe they may not return to it, but as a result, that has dampened the market. But China appears to be rising, and of course the United States always has an appetite for uranium. How do the locations of your properties position you appropriately to be able to supply the markets that are going to require uranium?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I mean, again, from an investment standpoint, I think uranium is an easy call for any contrarian. It's a very, very simple story: supply and demand. We've seen the two biggest producers curtail supply significantly in the last 24 months. On the demand side, I think the WNA, World Nuclear Association, is forecasting 50% electricity demand growth by 2035. So to give you a backdrop of that, we have rising demand for electricity and shrinking supply by the two majors. Basically, uranium right now is basically an oligopoly of the Kazakhs, and they're through this Kazatomprom is their company, which just went private last year, and then you have Cameco. Those two are basically have been able to control the price of uranium, and they've been curtailing supply. So I think the most significant catalyst that happened in the uranium market, in my opinion, was when Cameco put the world's richest mine on care and maintenance indefinitely and laid off, I think it was between 500 and 700 people, and this is at McArthur River. If they can't make money at these prices, then it's going to be very challenging for anyone to do so. So I think that was probably the catalyst for things that have changed, and as we saw last year, the spot price went up about 40%.
So let's also talk about uranium's role in a green economy, because we know that especially when you take a look at China and India, they have predominantly gone to coal, and they have to move off of it. There's no doubt about it. And that movement is already taking place in both of those major population centers around the world. And you talked about the increase in demand for electricity because of the industrialization of both of those countries. What does that say about the need for uranium? Because even Dr. Patrick Moore, who was one of the co-founders of Greenpeace, says uranium's the answer.
Yeah, well, I'm biased. I'm in the uranium sector, but I mean, there's no question there's a movement towards clean and green, and I think nuclear has to be a big part of that conversation. Nuclear power has a zero carbon footprint. It's base load power. It's clean power. China is the growth story. They're building. They have the most aggressive plan for new reactors. But right now, and I mean, this is something that I think the uranium market doesn't do a very good job of marketing itself, is that there is a record amount of nuclear reactors active right now. I think there's 13 new coming online this year and 13 again next year. So it's a very robust demand picture.
And growing.
And growing. So how to, again, back to an investment standpoint, to make a discovery, to develop a project, and to get it into production, you're talking a decade.
Right.
So how do we? Right now we're right now. Last year was the first year that we were in a deficit, meaning that reactor demand was about 190 million pounds. Mine production, we'll call it, was around 140. So we had a shortage last year. Inventories keep getting drawn down. So the phase that we're heading into is very positive, like I said, for contrarian investors, because there's going to have to be new product to come online to meet this demand. And right now it's not going to be possible. Like, a lot of the utilities are going to be significantly uncovered in the next 2 years.
And that's talking about the major power plants that are being developed. I also understand that we're going to be seeing more and more micro or much smaller generation plants, and they're going to require source material.
That's right. So a trend and a technology trend that's happening is what's called small mobile reactors, SMRs. So the major reactors basically have to service a huge population. SMRs could service mobile or smaller areas, and China is leading the way in terms of technology for that. I think that would be very robust for the uranium sector to have smaller nuclear reactors. Yeah, it's very positive, but you wouldn't know that by looking at the spot price or the sentiment in the uranium market.
Well, yeah. So the way that I hear that what you're telling me is, yeah, at the moment it looks like it may be uncertain, but the future is incredibly robust. If you're going to invest in uranium, you have to have a long-term view.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and the uranium cycle is longer than what most investors would relate to when it becomes oil or gold or copper, what have you. Like, it's very inelastic. So when you see WTI, West Texas Intermediate, or oil prices go from, say, $50 US a barrel to 70, uneconomic projects become economic. For uranium, it's not that elastic, because you need sustained longer prices, and you need higher contract prices to incentivize mines to sell their product. At $30 right now, which is where they call it, actually 27 is where we're at roughly right now, every mine is losing money. So you need higher prices to incentivize new mines, new production to come online, and we don't have that yet. So that's a really material aspect of this. I think the year 2020, 2021 is when a lot of these long-term contracts mature. So I think there's going to be, kind of a rush into this again sometime soon, probably after the Section 232 is addressed in the United States.
So we haven't even talked about what you're doing in Peru, and we're going to wind up running out of time, but let's just quickly touch on what's happening in Peru.
Yeah, so we have a property down there called Macasani. It's been part of the Fission group for a long time.
Right from the beginning, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we signed a letter of intent in, I believe it was August of 2018, with a company called Rhyolite, where they can earn in up to 80% of that project, and by spending $22 million. So, from our company standpoint, we've completely de-risked that project. We're using other people's money to explore on our property, while we still have a say in where we explore. That area is host to a lot of lithium as well as uranium. So it's a very interesting property, and we're hoping to have more news out on that sometime in the next few months.
Well, you've done a good job of containing your enthusiasm, but only just barely. Best of luck to you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.